The letter disclosed unnamed publishers received $60.8 million as emergency support through an existing Heritage Department program called Aid to Publishers. The grants were in addition to annual subsidies already paid, including proceeds from a $595 million media bailout approved by Parliament in 2018. So this latest payout is on top of the $600 million. They plan to keep the name secret, though, until after the election. But the people on this list are supposed to be the watchdogs, the guardians, the ones holding the government to account. Them taking a bribe is much worse than some, chewing gum factory taking a bribe. And the fact that they started their service to Trudeau immediately, they immediately tailored their coverage by not covering the payoff itself, shows they're fully in the tank for Trudeau. Imagine if Blacklock's hadn't broken the story last month. And imagine if we didn't file the access to information request. The other 1,500 news media companies in Canada would simply have hidden it from you. They're colluding, is my point.
Here's the first thing, Andrew. Not so much that $61 million as a top-up fee to the original $595 million, plus the billion plus that goes to CBC and 'Twas Ever Thus. But the very idea that we as Canadians don't have the right to know who's getting this corporate welfare, that's beyond the pale. That's so egregious to me.
Yeah, and you know how I try to think of the best of the situation, David Menzies.
Yes.
Best case scenario, wouldn't you want to believe that this is all advertising money for the election? The federal government wants to advertise for a re-election. If that were the case, then why is it secret? Would be my very first question. Now I have this stack of paper in front of me,
wow.
the list of it all. I went through a bunch of them, of the most egregious offenders on my Twitter. There you go, you can see it. But I just want to name, we can cut back, Justin, if you want. I got some more here. Black Press Group, it's basically every local newspaper in the entire country, from Snapped in Durham, this crappy little photography newspaper that serves the region of Durham, getting like $23,000.
$28,000, I believe you said, right?
From Snap. But then you have a giant, like the Black Press Group out west, and I just want to list off some of these because you might be watching from these places. Chilliwack Progress, $238,000. Penticton Western News, $112K. Surrey Now Leader, $238,000. Comox Valley, $200,000. Maple Ridge Pitt Meadows News, $211,000. Vernon Morning Star, $177,000. Abbotsford News, $244,000. And now the Black Press Group on its own is about $5 million. I think they're the biggest payout recipient from this election. Then we go to another, then we get into the weirdness of it all. About what are they doing with this money? If it's not just advertising, then if it is just advertising, why can't you just talk about it openly? The Annex Publishing and Printing Incorporated, these are these magazines they have. They're so generic, but yet they're receiving emergency federal funding for the election. We have Fruit and Vegetable receiving $21,000.
Oh, the last issue just landed on my desk the other day. I think it was about Macintosh apples or something like that.
Canadian Pizza, $27,000. Canadian Rental Service, $40,000. We've got Canadian Poultry Magazine receiving $110,000.
So these are trade magazines.
Yes. Greenhouse Canada Security, Groundwater Canada. You're going to like this one. Manure Manager. Got $53,000. Potatoes in Canada only did $13,000. Baker's Journal, $47,000. David Menzies. Let's pick up a piece of paper at random, like Chris Angel or David Blaine. I'm going to throw some at the screen.
Wow, look at that.
We're going to pick one out here with these are all $5,000, these ones. You want a random one? Pole Position. I'm guessing that's a racing magazine. What else we got? Turtle Island News.
Or it could be a magazine for strippers.
You can't talk about these things, David Menzies. We can just go anywhere.
Got the thumbs up from
Calgary's Child Magazine, $150,000. Mining Life and Exploration News, $50,000. So it's like every ethnic paper, every local paper, every large newspaper that's servicing Western Canada, Quebec. There's a couple of them that are Quebec. I pointed out on my Twitter. There's a men's magazine that received a couple $100,000.
Oh, which one?
Men's Style, I believe.
Oh, okay, that kind of men's magazine. I thought you
Yeah.
were talking about something else.
David Menzies, producer Justin, we're talking about serious topics. And David Menzies can't
No, it's
control.
laughable. I mean,
is.
and surely there was a punchline there when you mentioned Manure
right.
Manager
But
magazine.
what are these companies doing with all this money?
I'll tell you.
And even if it is advertising, what does Manure Magazine or Canadian Potato need with political advertising?
Do you know, I spoke to a local, I can't remember who it was, and I said it was about the whole, before this story broke, this whole idea of federal subsidies of taxpayer money going to prop up these newspapers and periodicals. And he said very unapologetically, but you don't understand, if we don't get it, we'll go out of business. Now, I'm not hoping that anyone goes out of business, but here's the deal. Let's put the clock back. Let's say we get into a DeLorean with the flux capacitor. We go back up, say 120 years ago, the infancy of the automobile industry. Could you imagine the manufacturers of buggy whips and wagon wheels going to the government? Hey, these newfangled automobiles, they're going to put the horse and carriage business out of business. And the answer to that is, yeah, it's called progress. I'm saying it, Andrew, and this is the exact same thing Maxime Bernier has said, who you will be meeting on a yacht in a couple of days.
Yacht Rock Radio, hit me up.
Adding further speculation that he is the voice of Yacht Rock Radio. If you can't make it, you go out of business. It's not the government's role and indirectly the taxpayer's role, or I should say directly the taxpayer role, to prop up dead dogs. But that is the model here. Bombardier is the king of the castle when it comes to that. And these little schleppers getting like 5,000 here, 6,000 there. It's the same flawed business model. If you can't, I'm so sorry, if you can't make it, you gotta go out of business. You're not entitled to your entitlements.
It's not Men's Magazine, it's Sharp Magazine. Sharp, the book for men, and S Magazine. They received over $700,000 in total for those three. Military Family Magazine, Lifestyle, $52,000. Mountain Sledder Snowmobile Magazine, $32,000. Canadian Punjab Times. Like they went after, they just reached out to literally anyone. And I'm guessing it said, do you need help sustaining or making a push for the federal election coming up? Well, the Justin Trudeau is here to help you. Hey, by the way, here's some talking points from Justin Trudeau. By the way, here's our press releases from now on. Do you want to be included in the Cool Kids Club? Do you want to be that kid Kean Bexley made fun of at the debates?
Oh, the one from Germany. Oh, my goodness. You know, how do you deal with the hatred on the campaign trail? He flew all the way in from Berlin or Cologne or wherever to ask that question. Absolutely incredible. But you know what? This is just so beyond the pale in terms of journalistic ethics, Andrew. Once upon a time, that was a word you would associate with the mainstream media. I think that ship has sailed. What I'm saying is you can't accept money from anyone that you're covering because that puts you in an inherently biased position. And I'll tell you a story. This happened in the late 80s, and I don't think it would ever happen today. I think it was around, I'm going by memory, I think it was 1989. Around then, you had the Exxon Valdez disaster in Alaska. And the Toronto Star flew a reporter and photographer up to cover. That was the biggest story in the world at the time. And they got to the furthest airport, I guess they could go to in Alaska, but they had to go further out remote, and that was only accessible by helicopter, and only Exxon had the helicopter. And as the story goes, the reporter and photographer got into the Exxon helicopter and went out to cover the story. In the aftermath, the Star bean counters figured out if that had been a private helicopter that the Star would have to hire, it was X amount of money. So they found out what that amount was. They wrote a check to Exxon to cover the rides, basically to say, we have no skin in the game. You gave us a free ride, but it's not like we're going to be favorable to you because we paid our debt of what we would have paid to a private helicopter service. That should be applauded. That is the Star going above and beyond the Call of Duty, I think. I don't think they would have fallen in love with Exxon for a free helicopter ride. The point is they've gone from that to pigs at the trough gobbling up millions and millions of dollars of tax dollars. And this is coming from a federal government that they should be covering. As Ezra likes to say, the watchdogs have now become the lapdogs because they are in an inherently conflict of interest position. And this secrecy and the fact that, and the proof is in the pudding, or the cherry cheesecake, as Doug Ford would say, the fact that none of these media outlets, Andrew, would file an FOI, a Freedom of Information request, to find out who's getting paid. I think that tells the whole story. It's one big secret. Well, the secret's out.
Well, I think if you want to take advertising from any political company, I mean, the Globe and Mail takes money from the Chinese government,
Yes.
and not for what it's worth. I don't know if you can directly not trust them for that. They are known as being harsher on China than other mainstream media. But I think you should be able to take money from any advertiser you want unless they're committing genocide, which I guess China is. But my point is, you can still talk about something and make it clear to the people that you're not going to be biased to them. Obviously, it's difficult if you're taking money from Reebok to, take a crap on Reebok when you're talking about if their shoes are bad. Shout out Reebok. They sponsor the show now. I wish. I think you can do that and still be impartial. But like you said, the secrecy of it and the timing of it and the fact that nobody else wants to talk about it is what is extremely strange. Go ahead.
Andrew, with all due respect, I don't think you can be impartial if you're taking money. I mean, just imagine if a Toronto Star reporter or a Globe and Mail reporter went to a construction site where there had been a disaster, and the owner of the construction company came up to the journalist and said, hey, go out on the town on me, and stuffed a couple of grand into his or her pocket. Do you think they can cover that story with clean hands after that? Of course you have to refuse. That's a bribe. Why would they refuse it from the private sector but take it from the public sector?
I'm not saying that I would do it. What I'm saying is I think it is possible. But there's a lot of examples where it's not possible. CNN doesn't talk bad about pharmaceutical companies. You watch CNN, there's nothing but, the 6,500 warnings at the bottom of the screen.
Oh, isn't that amazing?
When a pharmaceutical company commercial airs. So I think it is possible. I mean, I think we see it from other places. If Justin Trudeau wants to pay me $100,000 and I can still, trash talk him, then maybe I'd consider it. But I'm not going to, because Justin Trudeau, what he does with his money is it's taking tax dollars. I don't want to take other people's dollars that are literally coming out of other Canadians' pockets and say, this is what your opinion is going towards. So if a private company or a political party who's not taking taxpayer dollars gives money to, Potato Weekly, then I don't think that, I think it's possible for them that they can be impartial. But when you're taking government dollars, which is taxpayers' dollars, and it's $61 million spread all across the country. And I think it would be very hard. You'd have to convince me that it's not for the benefit of the federal government. Because why else would they do it?
Oh, hi. That was a clip from our Rebel Daily live stream. It's hosted Monday, Wednesday, and Friday by the big boss man, Ezra Levant, and Tuesdays and Thursdays by me, Sheila Gunn Reid, and my good friend, David Menzies. On the live stream, we talk about the news of the day, we show some videos, and we interact with our viewers at home. We stream at 12 noon Eastern, 10 Mountain. You can find us on YouTube, Rumble, Super U, and Odyssey.